Hey friends, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. We're gonna go for a different vibe in this video today, putting it down more casual, and that's because I really want to talk about this game, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and get my thoughts out there on a review that's probably more positive than most people, because ultimately, I think that this game can be good to some people like me, and I hope that this video reaches them, because the internet has a really nasty habit of making the worst out of a bad situation.
He's the Scarlet Speedster, so he's just constantly zipping around the map. That didn't make the fight hard, it just made it frustrating.
I was just looking for
IGN.
Channel Gary.
Nobody got a review code to this game, and so it's really the Wild West out here. And angry yelling gets like the most views, so I'm just trying to be honest with my playtime, let you know what I think from my time playing it. Big superhero nerd and all that. Off the bat, I put my own money down for the deluxe edition of this game on PC to get in early, and I haven't had any server issues or maintenance, so I can't speak to that. I know there's people that have been having that. But there are aspects of the game that I think need to be celebrated, and there are just as many things that are kind of a letdown, or a really bad reminder that the games industry hasn't fully learned from the failure of Marvel's Avengers a few years back. And for most people, this game is whatever you want it to be. Like, it's not really unbiased. If you hate this concept or this game, you're probably more upset about all of its other flaws. And if you want the game to be good, then it's easier to accept its more redeeming qualities. I was kind of unsure. I wanted it to be good in the beginning, but then I started rooting against it when it went live service, and then they delayed it for a year and didn't really remove the live service, but the game looks better now and has a kind of promising roadmap. So, still not as bad as the whole internet's making it out to be, but it could be good. So, alright, first I want to give you some context real quick. When the game was first teased, I'm talking like cinematic trailer, no gameplay or battle pass yet. People took it really well, myself included. It showed the great voice talent, the competent adaptation of some beloved characters, and yeah, the concept Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League had people intrigued. What does that mean? Why did Superman kill that guy? How were the Suicide Squad gonna kill the entire Justice League? The game was set up well, and it would only get more hype as the characters became more prevalent in other media, but only a month after that trailer, the Square Enix Avengers game came out and ruined everything. It did live service in the grossest way possible, had a mid-story at best, and didn't really do all that much with the larger-than-life heroes that took off so well in the MCU. The game lost 96% of its player base in a matter of months, and then got taken out back to live on a farm 3 years later. It left a big dent in the superhero games genre. The single-player Guardians of the Galaxy game that won a Game Award for its awesome story bombed because it was released by the same publisher. And then Gotham Knights after that, which was DC, flopped because of poor reception and a lack of people really understanding what the game was even trying to do, if not be another live service game. It had other problems, sure, but this isn't the video for that. I bring this up because Suicide Squad is the closest we've gotten to Avengers since then, both in terms of story and live service aspects. So let's get into the actual review. So speaking of the story, you start the game and see how the squad is recruited, you get an introduction to the world, the basic traversal mechanics, and the plot. The Suicide Squad is facing off against Brainiac and his mind-controlled Justice League. You kind of start in the middle of it. Green Lantern's already mind-controlled, but the Flash is still trying to save him, and it kind of takes off from there. You're in the city of Metropolis, home of Superman and the Justice League, and it's a change of pace from the Arkham universe that this game is set in. Yes, that Arkham universe that changed the superhero genre for the best way possible and went on to win many awards. This is the same studio and the same universe that we get into here. Some people from the studio left during development. Obviously, they didn't want to make a live service game. It's kind of like a higher up decision, but a lot of talent is still here in the DNA of this game. A lot of people don't like that this is in the Arkham universe. Most fans of that series are mad because you spent so much time playing as this crazy OP version of Batman, and now you're gonna have Captain Homeless over here shoot him in the ass and trigger a cutscene. It's just the nature of storytelling though, which is going to be subjective. If you want to tell a story where the Suicide Squad kills the Justice League, you're gonna have to break the canon a little bit. Simple as that. It happens all the time in comics and even some movies, and yes, it could have been more epic or less tone deaf in some spots, but these are villains after all, and the game is trying something else. This is Rocksteady's vision, and they're running with it. If anybody gets to decide what happens to this universe and its characters, it's them, and it's up to you, really, if you don't like it. Now, as far as length, the main story is pretty short. The campaign itself lasts only about 8 to 10 hours, and that's basically an hour worth of story for every year that this game's been in development. I will say, I think the story is short because a lot of the details and that sort of in-between story development is kind of skipped here. You don't interact with side characters as much, and anytime something needs to advance the plot, it usually happens in the same cutscene, and then it's off to the next mission. And that's kind of what the game wants. It wants to give you the story quickly, since it knows you're going to be spending a lot of time out there playing the game and grinding stuff out. Still, every line here is written well with respect to its characters, their source material, the tone of the story, and the overall narrative that's trying to perform. It's all subjective, so you may not like how some of this stuff is written, maybe it's too comedic or loud sometimes, but it's overall pretty good in my book. Some people will like it, some people won't. It's just the way it is. But it's also animated beautifully. Like, there are so many moments in the story where an emotion or a reaction is conveyed not by words, but by subtle animations and facial expressions that you can only get from a studio as talented as this. For some busy people, a game that they can beat in a weekend and then log a couple of hours into or minutes here and there is perfect. But for some, it leaves a lot to be desired. For $70, you may have been hoping for a bit more. At least I was. You know, maybe 15 or 20 hours at least, but it is what it is. So now let's talk about the combat and gameplay. From the tutorial, I can say I was pretty engaged, and a lot of the gun feel was really engaging itself. Hitting an alien dude with a melee attack and then juggling him with a shotgun felt awesome. And it's really through a lot of this well-crafted combat that the game gets to be so engaging. I know a lot of people are mad that the main combat element is basically just being a third-person shooter, with the main complaint being that with villains like these, why would you resort them to fighting with guns? Well, I mean, look at the movies. A lot of these characters also use guns, and it's their main method of combat. Yeah, King Shark could have been a more Hulk-like figure, but these characters still have melee attacks, and they use their regular abilities as ultimate style attacks. So this complaint kind of unfounded to me from a gameplay perspective, especially if, you know, you haven't even played the game. We can talk this one thing in circles, but just know that my main complaint isn't with the guns. The guns feel great, and there's even a pretty deep system here, with multiple tiers of loots a la Borderlands. You can get these guns as loot for completing missions, or as craftable items with materials from mission and combat. You can even upgrade your existing weapons in case you really like other stuff about the gun, but just want to re-roll the numbers. And there's a bit more stuff like afflictions, which is like elemental damage. But you know enough already to know that it can get pretty complex like in typical RPG fashion. Traversal in this game is one of its biggest strengths. The game map is huge, so you'll need an efficient way around it. It's like double the size of Arkham Knight. So thankfully, every character has unique traversal abilities like a jetpack for Deadshot, a bat drone and grapple for Harley, flash boost and teleporting boomerang for Captain Boomerang. Oh, and yeah, King Shark can do a big jump and slam to the ground. It's fine. But now, the biggest complaint I have is with the actual mission loop. Straight to the point, there's like 3 mission types you can do here, maybe 4. That being defend points A and B or C, rescue NPCs and kill enemies before the time runs out, and then kill and just destroy everything in sight. Fuck it, why not? The game tries to mix things up a bit by saying, oh, well, how about in this one you can only get kills with grenades, or something along those lines, but it feels less creative and more so that you don't get bored and drop the game. There's also a huge lack of enemy variety. You're fighting against Brainiac's army of humans turned aliens, so they're all just these goopy purple monsters that all shoot and kind of look the same with some variation of their attacks. Sometimes you'll fight a brute or a tank or a helicopter, but those can get repetitive too. You do get vehicles of your own sometimes, but they're more like attack vehicles, so they're like wired to self-destruct after a few minutes, so you never really get to use them outside of a few combat encounters. As far as boss fights, they're not as creative as they could be, and that's a shame. I won't go into details, but they're definitely not the highlight of the game, and it sucks a bit because that's what the title's really about. It implies this big epic encounter with the Justice League, and it kind of fails on that. It's meant to be live service, so maybe they didn't want it to be too good. Weird to say, but if the bar is set high, then they have to meet that every time in the subsequent DLC, and I'm not defending that. I think the studio should have absolutely given it all they had, but that's just my theory. I hope future boss fights can improve, or hey, Cyberpunk fixed their final boss after feedback, so maybe something like that can happen, but I don't know. Not every game is Cyberpunk that can just be fixed like that. Last thing is, the game has shields, but you don't just recover those over time. You actually get a message early on saying that the only way to recover shields is to weaken enemies and do a shield steal melee attack on them, and I think that's kind of cool. It's like an in-game reason for it too, and kind of spices up the combat a little bit rather than just being gun. Overall, the combat is solid, but fairly repetitive because, yeah, of the few ways that you do get to do it. I think one of the best things the game can do going forward is introduce more enemy variety, at least in design, and hopefully that'll come in the next season. So that's basically the gist of the gameplay. Now let's talk about the real concerning part of the game, and that's microtransactions. Straight up, the microtransactions are terrible. Not the worst I've seen, but kind of close. Worst games than this will have you spending money on materials or even stuff for XP or other pay-to-win garbage, but Suicide Squad said no, we're only doing cosmetics. Worst games would also have a predatory battle pass with skins and stuff that it would only be available for a limited time, so you better buy it before the timer expires, and you better get to the end if you want the good stuff. Suicide Squad, again, said no here, and so the first battle pass, isn't out, but we know that it's at least going to be only cosmetic, and you'll be able to go back to it at any time. So no rush, no grinding this game when you could be playing others, and you can choose to pay for it if you really like what it is after it comes out. We celebrate the small wins, but still, at its core, the item shop here is out of control. I mean, $10 for a single skin, and even then selling tiers of the skin that go up to $25 per character, and you can't even mix and match the parts of the skins or apply colors and shaders to other skins? That's ass. It just doesn't make sense. Again, nobody's just telling you to buy skins, and you can pay your admission fee, play the rest of the game for free, and even just hog the DLC as it comes in. But I really hope that Rocksteady brings those prices down to something way more reasonable. It's unlikely that we'll get like $3 or even $5, but I'm hoping for a bit more of that flexibility, you know? Until then, I'm not gonna have any of it. As far as future content and characters, you know, those will all be free and coming in the next few seasons, with the first character added as an alternate universe Joker, not the Arkham Joker, he died. But, you know, right on the line for tolerable with the Battle Pass stuff, but a lot of room for growth in the actual microtransactions. Alright, and last thing is, you know, I've played this game for a few days, so how's like the grind? How's like the progression? And I have to say, it's not grindy. I think a lot of the feel behind grind has to do with how much fun the game is, and I'm having a good amount of fun. It may be repetitive, but not grindy, if that makes sense. Obviously, I'm not going to hit a level cap of 30, much less on 4 characters in a day or two, but I've been leveling up pretty well on the characters I favor, those being Harley Quinn and Captain Boomerang. As for materials, I can't say that I'm feeling much need to spend them, and thus don't feel the need to grind them. There's also the contracts in this game, which are like short objectives that you might consider your dailies in other games, and those give you XP and materials. They're fairly easy, and there's a lot of them, so I don't feel like I don't need to grind those either. Sometimes a mission entices you to play as a certain character because that character is pumped and will gain more XP and stuff, and this helps you evenly level up your characters while also learning all the mechanics, and I enjoyed the variety of characters here, and the endgame content itself is pretty okay to check in on after work, like kind of like swinging around in Spider-Man and doing a crime or two. You can just log in, do some contracts or dailies, and then shut the game off and play something else. There's also some side quests you can do, as well as some Riddler races for cosmetics, trophies for like more lore codex stuff, and riddles to solve by scanning the solution in the world. I don't actually know if there's a reward for that, but it's fun, somewhat. It's something there for people that just want to change up the pace a little bit and have more stuff in between the content. There's also these little like loot aliens that you'll sometimes run across. Those are equally fun and annoying to chase down, but I don't know. There's stuff to do here other than the repetitive missions, but your taste and tolerance may differ. So no, the game's not too grindy. At least not at this point in time. I would say that while Marvel's Avengers felt like eating cold, sloppy, watery oatmeal every mission, Suicide Squad feels at least like warm milk oatmeal. And, you know, you can overindulge and sometimes it does get boring, but, you know, it's better than what it was before in the other game. Right, so let me make one thing clear. I'm not happy that Suicide Squad is a live service game. I would much rather have a single player experience that I can bring my buddies into a la Borderlands and then pay for cherry-picked DLC content after the game is released. I will say that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has a good enough foundation that the improvements to future storylines and mission variety can improve the overall package, but that being said, if this game had no more content after the campaign ended, would I pay $70 for it? Probably not. I would wait for it to go on a decent sale. It would be good to wait for even more content, more patches, improvements, and maybe some changes to the store, fingers crossed. But if you've been excited for the game, and are getting cold feet because the internet hates this game, not that it matters, and you don't mind paying $70 to get it early on, then go for it. I haven't really regretted my decision. I've been having fun. I know I might have mentioned some of the things that make this game not that amazing, but overall, it's a video game. You're meant to just play it, and is meant to give you an experience that you think is fun and worthwhile. I think, you know, because of the promise of additional content down the line and getting in a little early, I kind of like being early on into the process and seeing how everything builds on top of itself later. But really, that's just me. One of the benefits to the live service model is that developers can listen to feedback and change the model. Hopefully they listen to skins being way too expensive or give us the ability to earn absolutely everything through a less than tiring grind through gameplay, which is again, one of the game's strong suits most. So yeah, that's really it. Thanks for listening. I hope this helped. If you're anything like me, then I hope I was able to inform your decision to support the game if you've been looking to. If you're, not like me and you don't want to play this game, I hope, I gave you something to think about. But regardless of what I said, leave a comment below on what you think of this game. I want to hear from you. And if you like this video, what I had to say, leave a like. If you're more into reviews like this, then hit subscribe and stick around. And for those of you that are usually around here anyways, let me know what you think of this format. It's way more casual, a lot less scripted, a lot less in detail. Those are my thoughts. Thanks so much. Have a good day and happy gaming.